June 1944. Camp Hearne, Texas. A flat horizon of heat and dust, rows of wooden barracks, barbed wire rings the place, but inside is routine. Today, 50 German women stand in a small yard. They are thin and pale. Their faces are a mix of fear and fatigue. They have been prisoners for weeks. They were told terrible things about what captivity in America would mean. Rumors from home, warnings from officers, whispers on the march. Now the camp officers call them together. They say, there will be a clothing exchange. The word is translated. The women go silent. For several long seconds, no one moved. The heat sat heavy in the yard, pressing into their skin. A few women exchanged quick, frightened glances, unsure if they had heard correctly. They had expected interrogation, punishment, perhaps ration distribution. But not this. The term clothing exchange carried too many shadows from stories whispered during transport. Some women tightened their grip on the belongings they carried. Others simply stared at the guards, searching for a sign of cruelty or mockery. What they found instead was routine, almost boredom, something surprisingly human. But fear did not leave easily. It clung like dust. The phrase brings a fresh fear. In Germany, they had been taught that capture meant humiliation. They believed that clothing exchange could mean undressing, inspection, exposure. They have seen pictures and heard stories of cruel camps. Their hands shake. Some clutch small letters, some hide a photograph. A translator, a German-speaking corporal, stands between them and the Americans. He is steady. He tells them the clothing is new. It is meant to give them dignity. Few believe him at first. The corporal had seen this reaction before. During earlier intakes, he had watched prisoners recoil at harmless objects, a broom handle, a flashlight, even a blanket, because war had taught them to expect danger in everything. He spoke slowly, repeating himself, softening his tone. A few women nodded. Not in trust, but in exhaustion. They had no energy left to fight or question. The morning sun beat down on them, blurring the horizon, making the world feel unreal. Before we continue, if you're finding this story as powerful as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe to support our channel. We're amazed every day by this community spanning continents and time zones. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from, whether it's Berlin, California, or Birmingham. It's incredible to share these forgotten stories with people all over the world. 2 trucks arrive at the barracks. The camp quartermaster steps down with boxes. He wears a crease in his uniform and the slow calm of routine. The women watch. Some edge closer. The boxes are opened. Inside are neat bundles, shirts, skirts, wool stockings, woolen socks, jackets, and plain underwear. There are bars of soap and combs. There are warm blankets. The American soldiers handle the clothing without haste. They move as if this is normal work. For the German women, nothing about this is normal. They watched every movement, the way the quartermaster wiped sweat from his brow, the way a private adjusted the boxes with casual ease. None of it matched the sharp, rigid discipline they had been taught to expect from foreign soldiers. A few women dared to whisper among themselves. One asked if the clothing was truly meant for prisoners. Another wondered aloud why enemies would give them blankets in the middle of a war. Her question hung in the air, unanswered. The camp sergeant gestures. The women are told to line up. The line is single file. The concrete under their feet burns in the Texas sun. A few whisper a prayer. Others stare at the ground. The translator explains the process. You will be measured. You will be given clean clothing. You will have privacy to change. The word privacy is repeated slowly. One older nurse looks at the translator and sobs quietly. She wasn't alone. Several others lowered their heads, overcome by a sudden wave of emotion they couldn't explain. It wasn't relief. Not yet. It was the shock of being treated gently at a moment when they expected the opposite. Behind them, a guard shifted his weight awkwardly, unsure where to look. These were not scenes he had been trained for. He understood weapons, orders, and drills, but not the sight of frightened women crying at the mention of privacy. They enter a wooden room. It is simple. There are benches and a low partition. The guards step outside. The door is closed. The women breathe. Some cover their faces. The rumor in their minds is a room of shame. They imagine searches and humiliation. They imagine men watching. The sound of the truck leaving makes an empty space in the air. Then the Americans begin to sing quietly outside, a song about working the land. The sound is foreign and soft. It calms a few of the women. One of the women leaned against the wall, steadying herself. The quiet was unnerving. Silence in wartime usually meant danger. But here, it felt different, unfamiliar, almost gentle. Outside, the faint sound of boots crunching on gravel seemed distant. A fly buzzed near the ceiling, its ordinary rhythm strangely comforting. Small details, overlooked in chaos, suddenly felt important. Inside, the women are handed folded garments by female attendants. The attendants are nurses and Red Cross workers. They are Americans and a few volunteers. Their movements are methodical. They offer underwear wrapped in paper. They give each woman a comb, a toothbrush, and a small bar of soap. For many, the sight of a comb is enough to start a cry. A young clerk sits and holds the comb like a treasure. She runs a finger across its teeth and remembers a family she left behind, unsure it was meant for her. The bar smelled faintly of lavender. She lifted it to her face, inhaled once, and closed her eyes. Scent was memory. And for a moment she wasn't a prisoner. She was home again, standing in her mother's kitchen, the window open to the summer air. Such moments passed quickly, but they left an imprint. Even war could not fully erase the small human things. A voice reads instructions in German. The choir of fear loosens a little. The women change behind the low partitions. No one looks in. The guards keep their distance. They do not enter. A rule is strict. Male guards do not watch female prisoners undress. This is a point of pride among many officers. It is a policy enforced to protect dignity. For the women, this policy feels like proof. Trust did not appear instantly, but it flickered, small and cautious, when they saw the guards deliberately turn their backs, stepping even farther from the doorway than necessary. One woman whispered to another, "They are giving us space." The words felt strange in her mouth, as if she were describing something rare, something she had not experienced in years. When they step out, they are in clean clothes. The fabric is coarse but whole. The garments are not fine, but they are theirs. Some smooth the hems with small hands. An older woman turns the collar of her shirt and breathes as if she has just been given back a life. A few clutch the blankets to their chests. Tears fall, quiet at first, then more openly. One woman sits and weeps without shame. The others gather around and hold her. They do not yet understand how to be safe and clean. They do not yet know how to rest. For the first time in months, maybe years, some allowed themselves to breathe fully. A few leaned against each other, grounding themselves in shared warmth. One of the younger women, barely 20, whispered, "Is this real?" The older ones didn't answer, not because they doubted, but because they weren't ready to believe it yet. Outside, a small boy from the nearby town passes the wire fence. He watches the women in their new clothing. He is curious and has never seen foreign faces like these in his town. A guard waves. The boy runs back to tell his mother the camp is not only soldiers, there are townspeople who bring baskets or bread. They are careful. They do not parade the prisoners. These small acts will matter. Townspeople had been warned not to approach too closely, yet curiosity often won. Many had never seen prisoners of war, let alone women from another continent. Some locals left small gestures by the fence. Fresh bread, a folded note, a handful of pecans. These offerings weren't allowed inside, but the women saw them. They understood the intent even from a distance. The women are then led to the mess hall. A long table is set. Today the menu is simple. stew, bread, coffee. The smell of coffee alone causes a stir. Many have not tasted fresh coffee in months. The first cups are offered gently. Some refuse at first, fearing poison. A young nurse comes forward and lifts a cup to one woman's lips. The woman sips, then drinks. Her eyes widen. The taste is warmth and memory. A murmur goes through the room. This is not what we feared. The cups clink softly on the wooden tables. Several women stared at the rising steam as if it were a miracle. One, a former teacher, wrapped her hands around the cup and whispered, "Warmth means safety." Another corrected her gently, "Warmth means we are still alive." After the meal, the camp doctor calls the women for a health check. He is professional and brisk. He speaks through the translator. He asks simple questions. He records names, weights, and minor ailments. He prescribes rest and vitamins. He does not ask about politics. He does not humiliate. A note is made for soap distribution and for extra blankets that week. The paperwork is routine. It is small in scope but vast in meaning to those who receive it. Some hadn't been examined by a doctor in years. A few had untreated injuries from the marches or the capture. The doctor worked carefully, taking time with each woman. He smiled rarely, but his patience spoke for him. It felt strange to be seen not as a threat, but as someone to be cared for. Word of the clothing exchange spreads quickly. The other compounds ask for the same treatment. The camp commander receives more requests from the Red Cross. He authorizes more supplies. Local charities respond. A small church group brings blankets and knitted socks. The presence of civilians contributes to a culture of care. The women begin to see a pattern. Here, there is a system that preserves a person's basic needs. It is not perfect, it is not equal, but it is consistent. And consistency, they learned, could be its own form of healing. Even rules became comforting when they were applied fairly. In a world cracked open by war, predictability felt like luxury. Days pass. The women are assigned tasks to pass time and to give them purpose. Some mend clothing, others learn to sew American patterns for uniforms used in non-combat roles. A few are placed in the camp garden. They learn how to tend tomatoes and beans under the sun. A farmer from town teaches them. He shows them how to plant a row and how to water slowly. Working with their hands gives them a steady rhythm. It is a small reclaiming of life. Some of the women found they had a talent for gardening. Others enjoyed the sewing room, where quiet conversation became routine. Work did not erase captivity, but it brought back rhythm. Rhythm brought back thought. Thought brought back a sense of self. On a late afternoon, a group of cowboys brings 3 horses to the camp for the women to see. The horses stand calm and patient. The women are invited under supervision to touch the animals. At first, their hands are tentative. Then one, a young clerk, reaches out and runs her palm down a flank. The texture makes her laugh. The sound of laughter in that place is strange and fragile. It grows. The American handlers teach them how to brush and feed. The cowboys' arrival became the afternoon's only topic. None of the women had ever been this close to horses before. One of the handlers joked that the horses behaved better than the soldiers. The laughter that followed was small, but real. And real laughter has a way of breaking walls no speech can break. Music enters the camp in small ways. A radio plays blues and country. The Americans hum along. A harmonica is offered to a woman who once played an instrument back home. She hesitates, then plays a single note. It is not a practice melody. It is a small bridge between 2 worlds. Men and women from the camp gather. They listen. Some clap softly. That evening, a few German songs are sung in low voices. The Americans listen respectfully. For these moments, the war feels distant. Music loosened something inside them, a tension they had carried since capture. Some began humming even after the songs ended, carrying the melodies with them like small lanterns in the dark. The guards noticed. They smiled quietly but said nothing. Rumors still swirl. Some prisoners will not believe the kindness. Others fear that acceptance now will be used against them later. The camp does not erase fear. It only gives the space where fear can be examined. The soldiers enforce rules. Any misconduct by guards is punished. This is deliberate. The command wants discipline to equal decency. It recognizes that how you treat prisoners will echo beyond your fences. In the evenings, some guards sat outside writing letters home. A few prisoners walked slowly nearby, careful not to cross lines. There were no conversations, just quiet coexistence. Over time, silence became its own fragile language between them. As months pass, holidays arrive, the camp celebrates small American holidays. For Christmas, the mess hall is decorated with paper stars. The program is modest. The soldiers bring extra rations. The women are given a place at the table. They are offered simple gifts, a small scarf, a pencil, a card. Someone brings a small cake. It is not grand, but for many it is the first time in years they have experienced ceremony without fear. The women studied the decorations as if they were artifacts from another world. Paper stars, simple and unevenly cut, reminded them of holidays before the war. For a moment, memory softened their expressions. Some even dared to smile. When the news of Germany's collapse reaches the camp in the spring, the mood changes. There is fear and relief folded together. For the women, return becomes an uncertain prospect. They will leave a place of growing safety for a country of rubble and grief. Repatriation begins under organized plans. The Red Cross arranges transport. The women write letters home. Some tear up the envelopes once they are sealed, afraid of what the future will hold. The clothes they received travel with them. They will be small comforts in a hard return. Packing was painful. The women folded their few possessions slowly, knowing they were leaving behind the only stability they had known in years. The blankets given during the exchange were handled with care, as if they carried a story stitched into their threads. Some wrote final notes to guards who had shown them kindness, notes that might never be sent. Years later, some of the women will say the clothing exchange day changed them. It did not change the war. It did not rewrite politics, but it altered small human arcs. A woman who had been euphemistically called a clerk returned to teach. Another took up nursing. The combs remained a small relic. The blankets were wrapped in trunks. In private diaries, they recorded moments that did not fit the larger narratives of victory and defeat. War writes its own history in bold, harsh lines, but individuals record the margins, the quiet gestures, the unexpected mercies, the fleeting glimmers of humanity. These women carried those margins with them long after the guns fell silent. This story does not deny the war's brutality. It does not excuse crimes committed on many fronts. It simply records that in one corner of Texas, a simple act, giving clothing, soap, and privacy, had an outsized effect. It preserved dignity. It allowed people to breathe. It reminded them that decency is a choice that can be made even when the machines of war are running full. If you found this episode meaningful, consider subscribing. We bring forgotten moments of history into view. Tell us which stories you want next. Comment below. Share where you are watching from. These small connections keep memory alive. The clothing exchange is a small scene in a vast war. Yet small scenes build the human story. They show us how ordinary choices shape lives. Clothes, soap, and a rule about privacy were not showy acts. They were simple. They were careful. They mattered. And in the long years that followed, when each of them looked back on the war, they remembered not only destruction, but also this. A morning in Texas, clean clothes folded by strangers, a room filled with the soft sound of water, and the discovery that even in captivity, compassion could still find a place to stand.